Well, yesterday might not be a good example of this. In the Blue Jays series, the Rockies offense was able to come alive and showing some signs of what might come next season and beyond. How hopeful should we be? Let's talk about it. Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 5th day of September in the year 2023. I'm your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. And if your team is the Colorado Rockies, well, guess what? You're in the right spot, because that's what we do around here each and every day, is talk Rockies baseball here and talk about it with you, the fans, when you post there on the comments section in the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, and when you hang out with us here on Locked On Rockies, on wherever you find your podcasts, and on the YouTube channel, and of course on SiriusXM and the SiriusXM app. Just search Locked On Rockies or Colorado Rockies for your play-by-play coverage. Today's episode is brought to you by a Sleeper. Swing for the fences on Sleeper picks, and you can win up to 100 times your money. Download the Sleeper app and use promo code Locked On, and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions do apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 30 states. Check out Sleeper today. We're going to talk a little bit about an uptick in offense, and at least the Rockies consistently putting some runs up on the board. Of course, as that comes as they were just their offense was stifled for most of the game yesterday in the Diamondbacks. But in that series against the Blue Jays, the Rockies offense scored at minimum 5 runs. And if it wasn't for the unfortunate continued collapsing of the bullpen in this part of the season, the Rockies would have were certainly in a position to thump the Blue Jays. And it was nice. The Rockies were outmatched, but putting up some crooked numbers against the Braves is good. And it's been a long time since the Rockies have looked so gone on a long stretch of offense, of a sluggish offense. We've seen a couple of exemptions here with one of the August 29th game against the Braves, yesterday's game against the Diamondbacks, really both of the last 2 games against the Braves. But the Rockies offense has been scoring at least and scoring in some high numbers at least of late, and took advantage of cores at least in the finale against the Blue Jays, which is encouraging because this is all just extended looks and expanded looks at a lot of the guys of the future, plus the veterans still continuing to just show that they're able to contribute, and Sean Bouchard making his return to the lineup over the weekend as well. It was frustrating in that Blue Jays series, of course, with the Rockies having ample opportunities, ample leads in this series. But unfortunately, the Blue Jays were able to out-Coors the Rockies in that one. But at least it makes it more entertaining, more exciting, and enjoyable to watch when the Rockies are able to kind of fight back into these slugfests and the offenses are able to do a little bit more. But then we're reminded of where of who the Rockies need to compete with, and what the Rockies are still facing in games like yesterday in the opener against the Diamondbacks. This Rockies team frequency of strikeouts, and this can be applied to any series at any moment, at any point in the season, no matter if it was the veterans or shifting to the young guys. The Rockies, to really make me more confident in this offense, to make me really believe and see steps forward next season, especially, I got to see the strikeouts dipped. We talk about this a ton, but the Rockies strikeouts just completely limit their ability to do anything and get into games. Merill Kelly had 12 strikeouts, and then the Rockies did strike out 2 more times. That's 14 strikeouts there from Diamondbacks pitching yesterday. And it's they're so unproductive. They just come at the worst times, and it just highlights, I think, one of the biggest struggles and the biggest growing pain issues that the Rockies are going through right now as a team. In the finale there against the Blue Jays, another double-digit strikeout performance. I mean, the double-digit strikeout performances from the Rockies offense are so debilitating in the long run, and this is a team that is now struck out. It's 3 straight games. I'm going through all my math here. That's 3 straight games with at least 10 strikeouts for the Rockies. It's probably going to go back. Yeah, it's broken in that first one where the Rockies only struck out 7 times in that series. But as encouraged as I am to see the Rockies putting up numbers against the Blue Jays, especially at home, with the Rockies scoring, what is that? Quick math here. Was that 23 runs there in that series against the Blue Jays? That's a great sign and a great bounce back, especially after the Rockies were pretty well subdued by Atlanta. But the offense shows that it can go round for round with some of these teams and keep you in close ball games. And the Rockies would be looking more fondly on this offense if the bullpen was able to keep them in these games, keep them in the close games, keep them in the games that the offense has brought them back into multiple times or throughout some of these series. The Rockies able to bounce back after going down 4-2 in that first one. They put up a 3 spot to go up 5-4 in the game on Friday against the Blue Jays. But then it's the collapse again. It's a 5 spot given up. It's 9 runs given up by the bullpen there in the finale on Friday. It's the Rockies kind of having to hang on, but fighting back after a tough start there on Saturday. But the offense showing that they can be effective, but still having to hold on by the skin of their teeth in the final frame of the game, because a 3-run lead almost wasn't enough for the Rockies with the current state of this bullpen. All in all, it's encouraging to see the Rockies scoring more runs, especially when you look at games and Montero's doing damage in some of them. And it's still great to see. I think Charlie Blackmon has now reached in 19 straight ball games in there. And we see McMahon hit scoring some runs. All of that is a good sign and part of the reason to be somewhat encouraged. But just like we talked about throughout this whole stretch, it's just the Rockies' inability to put it all together. The offense might be going, but the bullpen collapses. The starting pitching is there, and the offense isn't able to get anything going. Look at yesterday. I mean, we'll get to this. We'll talk about it really in segment number 2 coming up here, because the Rockies are hanging in there, and you've heard about it if you've listened to the broadcast a lot. The Rockies are in these ball games most of the time. They're playing like 6-7 inning games, and if baseball was those lengths, the Rockies wouldn't be in this tough stretch. They'd be in a situation where they're upsetting some teams. But that's not how it works, and we got to talk about that here coming up in segment number 2. Let's do that after I tell you about our friends at Sleeper. And look, folks, if you know baseball, if you are someone out there that's got the read on baseball, that feels like you know the trends, that feels confident in maybe your Rockies knowledge, and you know that Charlie Blackmon's going to keep getting on base, and you want to go for a base hit or a walk, and you know that Mookie Betts is going to do something big, and Acuna is going to do something big. Why not put your skills to the test and check out Sleeper? The MLB playoffs are around the corner, which means the clock is ticking on your chance to 100 times your cash on daily fantasy baseball. Yes, that's right. I know you like fantasy sports out there. I know you're big fantasy fans out there. So check out the daily fantasy baseball app, Sleeper. Baseball has never been more exciting than it is now, with studs like Acuna, Betts, and Ohtani. Pick more or less on stats from these stars like home runs, hits, strikeouts, and more for 100 times payout on Sleeper. Get your picks right, and you can win big. All you got to do, test your knowledge, put together a line of Rockies players that you feel confident in and their abilities. We're talking the Rockies scoring more runs. Maybe you want to believe in Nolan Jones continuing to contribute for the Rockies. Check it out on Sleeper. And when you use the promo code Locked On, you'll get a $100 match on your first deposit. That's right, a $100 match on your first deposit at Sleeper. Don't miss out. Use the promo code Locked On, and you will get that $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for detail, and you can check it out here at sleeper.com. Use that promo code Locked On. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast, free and streaming on your favorite streaming service, and bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. Shout-outs to you for checking us out on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel. We have some Braves fans that were checking us out when we were talking in the Braves series, and I had some nice words from Callum Callahan there as well. So shout-outs to y'all, and shout-outs to y'all for hanging out there. And your subscription is one of the best ways to help the show, and one of the best ways for you to stay up to date with what we are doing here on Locked On Rockies. So thank you again for all your support over there. And, of course, SiriusXM and the SiriusXM app, you can find the podcast as well. So the Rockies have been in these games, right? I mean, it's total copium that we're working with right now. But the Rockies have shown fight and have shown the ability to fight back and get into these ball games. They've shown the ability to handle some adversity and show a little bit of life. This team hasn't given up, but they keep getting derailed by what seems like one bad inning. It was on full display yesterday where they give up 3 runs in the bottom of the 4th, and then they go down to set down, I believe, 12 straight Diamondbacks, 15 straight Diamondbacks, somewhere along that range. I can't remember the specific line. And you look at, they talked about this on the broadcast yesterday. Chris Flexen's line isn't impressive or dominant, but it is one that the game didn't get out of hand, and Flexen and the bullpen were able to set themselves up for success and set the Rockies up for a path to coming back. That's the issues, like we were saying, with the strikeouts. When the Rockies' offense is so stifled by striking out and aren't able to generate momentum and generate enough base runners and enough attention on the bases to really do damage when the Rockies do hit the ball, it just seems like the Rockies are just coming up so short, and it comes down with that the stretch of losing games after having the lead. It's the one inning meltdowns that continue to make things out of reach for the Rockies. And look at the Blue Jays series where they gave up 5 in the 7th and then an unfortunate 3 in the 9th. That's more than one inning, I understand, but that this was after the Rockies were getting out to an early lead, and the Rockies able to fight back in that 9th inning and put up a 4 spot of their own. The energy is there. The talent appears to be brewing. It's now going to become a situation of growth. September has to be a month where we continue to see positive trends in the right direction. I think one big thing that we can see is Montero continues to look like he's getting a little bit more comfortable, and he's going to have more opportunities there for the Rockies as they do designate. They send Tolia down to the minor leagues because of how good Hunter Goodman has been to start the year, or start his tenure off. So Montero should still be getting some more bats. We'll see. Hopefully at least 250 at-bats here by the end of the season. He's at 197 now, so I don't think that's should be that crazy. And over his last 7 games for Montero, he has been really swinging the bat well, and that translates over his last 15 to a pretty good, solid last month as well. Last 7 games for Montero, batting .350 with an OBP of 500 and a slugging of .550. A home run in that time, 4 RBI, a couple more extra base hits there as well. Was held hitless in yesterday's game, but was able to get on base. A couple of strikeouts there as well. But multi-hit game against Toronto, a couple of multi-hit games against Toronto, or just one, I can't remember. But certainly doing more damage and showing that giving him especially more time is exactly what we need to be doing here. And going back to his last 15 games, 47 at-bats here. He has had 16 hits in that time, 2 home runs, driven in 10, scored 10 times himself, 6 walks to 16 strikeouts. Strikeouts still obviously the thorn in the side for Monty and so many more. But again, those are the type of stretches we want to see. Montero having a strong finish to the season. Montero looking better at the dish and looking, growing there and growing in his role, and the Rockies growing in their understanding of what they're going to do with Montero and how they're going to use him. Because for so long it looked confusing, and honestly, that still gets a little bit more complicated and confusing with the return of Chris Bryant. I mean, Montero is someone it's going to be really interesting to see how he finishes the season and what the offseason looks like for him in the Rockies, just because they got to figure out exactly his role. And that's just like with everything that we're going through with the Rockies. It's just they're figuring these pieces out for more long-term success and long-term role. It's a bummer that we're not going to see more of Tolia, at least right now. But at this point, I think with the current setup and stage with the Rockies, Montero's the one we need to see. Montero is the one that needs to be given the priority of playing first base and figuring out what you're going to do with him, especially as you're figuring out the return of Chris Bryant and now the fact that you could have Hunter Goodman out there in right field. If Hunter Goodman continues to be an impact bat, is someone that adjusts and is ready to go consistently at the major league level, Chris Bryant is going to have to find a new home. You're going to want to go with your two elite defenders and possibly your best, looking at some of the numbers and some of the arguments, potentially your best overall young guy in Nolan Jones, depending on how you look at it and some of the numbers in comparison to Ezekiel Tovar. You're going to keep that defense of those two out there. If Hunter Goodman is swinging a good bat and can play a solid right field, you almost have to put Chris Bryant at first base. And if you bring Charlie Blackmon back, your DH position, or you have to put Chris Bryant has to be going there. A Bryant-Blackmon DH situation with a rotation with Montero at first and Montero in the DH rotation could work out. But this September is kind of a show at time for a lot of these guys, and get a good stretch going. You know what's been we've been trying to stay positive, and the Rockies have shown fight. We were talking about some offense in some game in the Blue Jays series. We're talking about some Monty having a good month, but September would be it's time for this team of young guys to put a stretch together of raising some eyebrows and really shake things up in these division races for some teams. The close enough is fine in this context, and they've been reflecting on it. It was, you're getting the real emotion from these Rockies guys. You saw Justin Lawrence's interview after. This stuff matters to them. This season matters to them, and it's a key moment for the path for this generation of Rockies players, for what should be or what we hope to be the next generation of successful Rockies baseball. If it's built from within, if it's built from these guys, this is a key moment for these guys to look back at and a key moment to look at and move forward to. So just like we're talking about August into September and we want to see the trends upward, if everyone starts trending upwards, if the bullpen starts ironing things out, if the Rockies can put together a nice stretch of some wins, it doesn't have to be a long winning streak, but winning 5 of your last 10, splitting some series, stealing a series from the Cubs, for example, who you got the back-to-back with, taking on the NL West and being more competitive against them than you have all season long, because I think they said on the broadcast the Rockies got 8 total wins against the NL West this year. We need to start seeing some of that stuff too, because I want to start seeing those types of steps where the Rockies will start raising the eyebrows a little bit to finish this season out, versus just us continuing to look and saying, hey, they were in it. They were fighting. They showed a little bit more offense here. It's time for the Rockies to show us that they can put together some ball games and start stealing and start winning some of these ball games as well, because they've had the opportunities. It's time to start taking advantage of them. Kind of all over the place, I feel like, in today's pod, but it's kind of, it's so stagnant and it's so wait and see, and it's just a weird point in the year and a weird point at time where this has to be the focus. You can't just only focus on the wins and losses as we look at the Rockies day to day. We have to acknowledge, like we've talked about, acknowledge the losses, but we have to look for the storylines from within the ball games. And we have to start looking at some of these storylines from within. And as the Rockies continue to go through this really difficult stretch, they're showing us that there's potential, but the gap is still there. Let's see the Rockies shorten the gap a little bit more and see what happens there. But you know, and it's still frustrating though. It's still this stretch and I feel like the last few weeks with the bullpen since really the bullpen issues have started going up have been incredibly frustrating to watch, because you can't sit there and feel with the utmost confidence as a Rockies fan that the Rockies can close out games, that they can play the full 9 innings. They might be in these close ball games. They might be going blow for blow. They might be responding. They might be fighting down to the last pitch. But it's not quite enough, as they're showing. This is the pros. This is the big leagues. I want to see everybody take a step forward and start sealing some wins here, as the Rockies are going to be entering now an offseason where the pitching staff and the issues with pitching are going to have to be fully addressed, because there's no help coming in your draft and develop system, at least immediately. And this team, if they got to start looking at putting them in the best opportunities possible. So we'll see if that happens. Ezequiel Tovar was getting, they were talking a little bit about him on the broadcast. They were comparing him to some more rookies there, and should he be in the consideration for more Rookie of the Year talks. And let's dive into that, because I want to hype up our guy, but I think we also need to put into context other rookies and another rookie on the team as well. I saw a tweet about this, and that kind of inspired this topic coming up here in segment number 3. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast. We're free and streaming on your favorite streaming service, and bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. If your team is the Colorado Rockies, then you're in the right spot. That's what we do around here, is talk Colorado Rockies baseball. You can also find us on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel. Go check us out there. Hang out with us there, and let me know what you're thinking about the Colorado Rockies with your Rockies hot takes in the comment section below. The Rockies have some pretty good rookies. The Rockies have some really interesting rookies, and they were talking on the broadcast about Ezequiel Tovar maybe not getting as much recognition as other NL Rookie of the Year candidates. And you know, when you're playing Arizona and you see what Corbin Carroll is doing, what Corbin Carroll, the impact that he's having, and the impact that he's had against the Rockies and throughout this season, it's the reminder of Ezequiel Tovar is great. Ezequiel Tovar has been wonderful. But he's still not on this level. He's still not on the level of he's not putting out the same output as some of these other players and some of these other Rookie of the Year candidates. He in fact, when you're looking at Baseball Reference, his wins above replacement are below both Carroll, Outman, and teammate Nolan Jones. So I don't think Ezequiel, and we've talked about it on the show, Ezequiel Tovar deserves to be talked about and discussed. And we should not take for granted the fact that him and Nolan Jones both look really, really good. As things pan out, there's going to be more question marks with more of the young guys that the Rockies are trying to figure things out with. But when you look at those two guys for the Rockies, you can be confident in them. You can believe in them. But you can also keep in mind and keep in perception and keep in perspective this season, where the Rockies are at, and other rookie performances. And Corbin Carroll has just simply been the best NL rookie this season. I mean, and there's been some others as well that have performed better, helping their teams win in certain situations and helping their teams perform more. But we shouldn't take away from the fact that the Rockies have two young players ready to break out, I think, into super impactful seasons. I think the better discussion when we're looking at Tovar and Jones is that if this is the floor, what is the ceiling truly? If this is the floor for Tovar and Jones, is the ceiling a Corbin Carroll-like season where you can go and produce a 5.1 WAR? Can they both, I think, are capable of 20-plus home run seasons. I don't think it's that outlandish to think that one of them might reach it this year. I mean, if Ezequiel Tovar hits 5 more home runs and gets 2 more stolen bases, that's a 20-10 season. That's pretty good. But Corbin Carroll's got a 24-41 season right now. He's driven in 67 this year. He's batting .282. He's got an OBP of 361, a slugging of 525, and an OPS of 886. When you compare that, Ezequiel Tovar is batting .256 with 15 home runs, 64 RBI, 290 OBP, a slugging of 423, and an OPS of 713. It's just the numbers all favor Carroll. And they were saying that on the broadcast. They were acknowledging that. They just were I think the point was Tovar should get a little bit more love. But if Tovar needs more love, so does Jones. And I think we need to focus on the fact that these two players have strengths in different areas that could really build things up. And on top of it, the Rockies might have just had another guy making his debut that could be off for a young and exciting upstart to the season to see how he finishes out in Hunter Goodman. Hunter Goodman's going to be, the jury will still remain out there because of the fact that he's only going to be in the big leagues for a little bit of time. And sometimes when they get these short sample sizes, they look great. But once they're consistently up at the big league level, and teams get the book on him a little bit more, they can adjust heading into the next year. But though the rookies deserve a little bit more chat about them and a little bit more respect probably in the grand scheme of baseball and baseball media, when you're a 50-win Rockies team and you're looking at your first 100-loss season, that's going to cloud those, and especially when you're overshadowed by a team that's dominated you all year, a division rival that's dominated you all year, headlined by probably the best rookie in the National League. I don't know how you can prove otherwise there in Corbin Carroll. So Rockies look to bounce back. Rockies want to get back in this series against the Diamondbacks. They're going up against a pitcher that is not the best pitcher here for the Arizona Diamondbacks. The Rockies going up against Brandon. I'm sure we've heard this name, but Fott. I think that's what it is there, and he's currently sitting at a 1-7 record, 6.21 ERA in 14 games. He's got a WHIP of 142. He hasn't, in his last 2 starts, hasn't made it past the 5th inning. Has given in his last start against the Dodgers was roughed up a bit there in 4, but was able to still get a win. And that was the 2 starts before that. Cincinnati and San Diego only gave up 2 runs in both of those starts there, and only gave up 4 hits in both of those games. So Rockies certainly aren't going to be able to just can't show lack of offense in this one. They got to go out and go after him early and try to get to making sure that they can't get in a groove that the Diamondbacks so often seem to get against the Rockies. So we'll see how it goes. First pitch coming your way later tonight here. We will be breaking it all down right here on the Locked On Rockies podcast. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day. We are free and streaming on your favorite streaming services. You can find us there. You can find us on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel. You can find us on SiriusXM and the SiriusXM app. For your second listen of the day, go check out the Locked On Broncos, Locked On Avalanche, Locked On Nuggets, and Locked On Buffs podcast. I don't know, something to listen to there. Kind of some big news that just happened in college football this weekend there about that Colorado football team. Lots going on in Colorado sports right now. Don't miss out on it all on the Locked On Podcast Network. Until next time, this is Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies podcast.